Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. My name is Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I am joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, epiloguist.
All right. Such an accomplished position you're in as the world's premier epiloguist. We are here at the epilogue to our season on the films of the year 2000. As we do every season, we take a look back at all the movies that we talked about, movies that we didn't talk about in our various categories of what other notable movies there are from this year, and some suggestions that you, our wonderful listeners, had given us about your favorite movies from the year 2000. And Dave, this was your pick for the year. We decided to let you out of your cage and determine which year we would cover. And are you satisfied with how it turned out?
I think so. As you guys noted on the last episode, I had a few 5-star ratings, which doesn't happen very often. And I think we talked about a lot of great stuff.
All right. Well, back in your cage.
All right.
It was a good season, Josh. We started with our box office champ, Mission Impossible 2, which took some big swings, but didn't necessarily connect on all of those swings. Other films that made just a lot of money there, Josh. Top 10 of the year: Castaway, What Women Want, Dinosaur, a movie I don't even remember, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah, I was looking at that list as well, and Dinosaur was the 5th highest grossing movie of this year, and I had to look that up. It's a Disney animated movie that involves like CGI dinosaurs combined with live action backgrounds. And it sounds terrible, but somehow I guess anything that Disney put out would just make a ton of money at this time.
The one that jumps out to me on this list based on all of the types of movies is What Women Want, right? It's kind of like when we did 9 to 5 back in the day, and it was like the second highest grossing movie of 1980. This is, a top 5 movie. And I think this might have been the last year or within the last years that it could have been a top 5 movie.
Yeah, I mean, just down, I think at number like 7 or something is Meet the Parents, which is another, again, that kind of comedy that would not be a top 10 grossing movie at the box office now. It would be straight to streaming.
I have nipples, Josh. Can you milk me?
All right. Our first feature, we had a lot of, I think, interesting options here that we talked about. We ended up covering Sexy Beast from Jonathan Glazer, which is a very entertaining movie. I thought that was a lot of fun. Some major directors that we mentioned to potentially cover: Bong Joon-ho, his first film, Barking Dogs Never Bite; Craig Brewer, a movie called The Poor and the Hungry that I think you brought up, Jason, that I'm not familiar with at all. Andrew Dominic's Chopper, David Gordon Green's George Washington, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu's Amores Perros, Christopher McQuarrie's The Way of the Gun, Todd Phillips' Road Trip, although I think that's probably his first narrative, but not his first.
Right, he did the fraternity documentary that kind of got released and kind of didn't get released. It played like festivals.
Yeah, and I think it's still, is that even available to see? Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it. I should look for it.
And he made a pro wrestling documentary too before that, didn't he? Have you seen that one?
Oh, did he?
I think he did. I want to say that he did, but
I don't know about
that is his first feature film. And he's certainly gone in interesting directions in his career. And Peyton Reed's Bring It On, which is a favorite of mine that I think will probably get a few more mentions here. But I definitely was curious about that Bong Joon-ho movie and the David Gordon Green one as well, because he's also had kind of an unlikely career based on it where he started. But Sexy Beast was a great one to talk about.
I mean, all of these would have been good. I had also marked down Stephen Daldry, Billy Elliot, which of course was my pick this year. Andrew Dominic's Chopper is a great movie. I really love that movie, and it's probably Eric Bana's best work. And then, I remember enjoying The Way of the Gun in the theater. There's just every single one of these would have been worth covering, I think.
Yeah, I remember seeing Chopper at a film festival at Cinevegas, I think, here, and it was a big festival sensation, and I was a little, I think, disappointed at the time, but I don't remember a whole lot about it. Staying on Sexy Beast, we have to give a shout out to Letterboxd user You're a Blur, and we appreciate tagging your review Awesome Movie Year. I believe this person also had a review for us last season, so thank you very much to You're a Blur. They enjoyed Sexy Beast, said, even though I can't go 4 stars on it, I really love this movie. The first half is better, mostly because the second felt rushed and missing something. Everything fell together so well at the very end, and there's a cool mirroring / cyclical effect, sort of. I just like how it ends where it starts. Ben Kingsley rules, and I certainly agree that Ben Kingsley rules.
Good job, Euroblur. We appreciate it. When it comes to giving it 4 stars, Euroblur said, no, no.
Still a very positive response. So if you would like to tag any of your reviews, Awesome Movie Year, of the movies we talk about, we'd love to share your thoughts on our next epilogue.
Ooh, talk about a big task for an epiloguist.
You're up to it, though, I think.
I think so, Josh. I'll tell you some movies that weren't up to it were our flop category contenders. We, of course, went with Battlefield Earth, one of the all-time flops. And after watching it, I can see why, Josh.
Yes, I think we all understood the floppiness of that film.
Yeah, so there was Drowning Mona, the Bette Midler, Danny DeVito vehicle. What Planet Are You From? Which would have been interesting. That's the Mike Nichols, right, directorial vehicle with Gary Shandling, where I knew they didn't, from what I heard, that they did not get along from like the first day. Titan AE, which I think has a decent reputation. Rhoda El Dorado also has a good reputation. And then we also had The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, Red Planet, Supernova, plenty of choices, lots of flops this year, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, Supernova, I believe, is an Alan Smithy credit. So
he's
I don't know if we haven't talked about Alan Smithy yet on this podcast. But yeah, a lot of notorious failures there. But obviously Battlefield Earth, when you talk about the most famous flops of all time, has got to be in the top 5 there.
Right. And if you don't know, Alan Smithy is a name. When a director wants to take his or her name off the project, they say it's an Alan Smithy project.
Yeah, although I think that has been retired because it used to be people didn't know and it was just a way to put a generic name. But now everyone knows that means something went wrong. So they won't use it anymore. But I believe Supernova is either that or it's another similar pseudonym that maybe because Alan Smithy was retired. So whole history there. We could do a podcast on Alan Smithy movies. That would be fascinating.
That would be good right after Field of Burns.
Right.
Yeah. And
we're going to get to Field of Burns.
And the reassessment podcast.
Yeah. So we talked about the Palme d'Or winner at the Cannes Film Festival, which was Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark. Some other movies in competition at Cannes from a lot of major filmmakers. Ken Loach's Bread and Roses, Michael Haneke's Code Unknown, James Ivory's The Golden Bowl, Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love, Nurse Betty by Neil LaBute, who I guess was still considered a major filmmaker at this time. The Coen brothers, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Songs from the Second Floor by Roy Anderson. The Yards by James Gray, and Edward Yang's Yi Yi. And that's a pared down list. Like, it was a huge lineup at Cannes this year.
Yeah. After sitting with Dancer in the Dark more, I like it less.
All right. That's an interesting response, but
it's true.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No, that's totally fair.
Josh, I'd have to say this was a good year for documentaries. Of course, we went with the delightful and charming Agnes Varda and The Gleaners and I, which we all recommend. Some other ones that I was looking at, I mean, the original Kings of Comedy was a sensation at this point in time. I remember seeing it in the movie theater with our old classmate, Robert Weber. Josh, how about that for a name? That's just a great concert film. Spike Lee directed. You got Bernie Mac just killing it. You got Steve Harvey before he became so annoying. You got D.L. Hewley. You got Cedric the Entertainer. Recommended on that one. Of course, the wrestling documentary Beyond the Mat I was a fan of, Josh.
I think that's what I was confusing with Todd Phillips, because I just looked that up and I was wrong. So there's no Todd Phillips wrestling documentary.
Barry Blaustein, I think, did that one. The Filth and the Fury, right? That's Julian Temple. Is that who did that one? The
Sex Pistols documentary.
Yeah, which is very famous. And Julian Temple is a very famous rock and roll documentarian. Mr. Death, The Life and Fall of Fred A. Lochter Jr., which is Errol Morris. And then some other ones I wasn't as familiar with, Josh. Long Night's Journey into Day, Dark Days, and Backstage.
Yeah, and I'm not that familiar with those either. Long Night's Journey into Day, I think, got a lot of awards attention, and that was a documentary about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. So we haven't really done much. I think we shy away from these heavy political documentaries, other than having covered Michael Moore back in the day. But maybe we'll.
And we did the Fog of War.
That's true. We did do that. So we've talked about Errol Morris as well. But Yeah, I was glad to get to talk about Agnes Varda there, and I still would have been meaning to watch some more Agnes Varda films that I didn't get a chance to when we did that. My pick was Wonder Boys, which I was happy to revisit as we talked about in that episode. Hadn't seen in a long time, and it was fun to check that out again. Couple other possibilities, Almost Famous, which I was kind of expecting would end up being our audience choice film, and it wasn't, but I do love that movie and have seen it multiple times. And as I mentioned earlier, Bring It On is a favorite of mine. But I have seen that many times and I've written about it, so I was kind of thinking it would be more interesting to do something that I had not watched so much, and I'm glad that I did, but I certainly recommend both of those films.
Yeah. We like Bring It On. We like Almost Famous, and we like Wonder Boys. All good picks, Josh. You did
Thank
good,
you,
buddy. For the foreign film, we had Amoros Perros, which we mentioned already in our first feature. For Iñárritu, we of course picked Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You can't ignore what a sensation that was. It was good to revisit. Yi, a very critically acclaimed film. Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love. And then Songs from the Second Floor, Maelstrom, and The Taste of Others, European films that are critically acclaimed, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of major films there. We have talked about Wong Kar-wai, I think way back in maybe, was it our first season when we talked about Chungking Express? But In the Mood for Love, I think is regarded as his masterpiece. And, maybe we'll get back to him eventually. And I've seen Yi, although a long time ago. It's a sort of an epic Taiwanese film, but also very notable. So lots of options there. And I think we almost went with Songs from the Second Floor too, because that's Roy Anderson, a very distinctive filmmaker in those movies that he made with that particular style, with the static camera and the vignettes and whatnot.
Right, but impossible to ignore Crouching Tiger, Josh.
Yeah, no, good choice, definitely. Good job, us.
Thanks. Thanks, me. Speaking of choices, it was my pick. I went with Billy Elliot. You know I love these kind of sentimental British movies that really work. When they work well. I had mentioned I saw Fever Pitch, the Nick Hornby adaptation of his own book, the original British version, and that one didn't work for me. So it's interesting to kind of compare and contrast movies like that. I love Billy Elliot still. I was also looking at Almost Famous, Josh, Wonder Boys, High Fidelity, which we did cover. Lovely. And then the two others, Steven Soderbergh's Traffic, which I said would have been my vote for Best Picture that year, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? One of my favorite Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah, and that was a definite favorite of a lot of our listeners as well. A common suggestion when we were asking people about their favorites. So I feel like it's not as common, Jason, that you and I overlap so much in our potential picks, that we usually have different kinds of taste in terms of what we would want to pick for our own. So we had a lot of similarities here in this year for whatever reason.
Dave really brought us all together, didn't he?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. So we did 2 episodes at the Sundance Film Festival because there was a tie for the Dramatic Grand Jury Prize. So we talked about both Girl Fight and You Can Count on Me. And like Cannes, a really packed year here at Sundance. Both of those documentaries that we mentioned, Dark Days and Long Night's Journey Into Day, were award winners at Cannes. Dark Days won the Audience Award, and Long Night's Journey Into Day won the Grand Jury Prize for the documentary. Other big awards, movies that I'm not really familiar with, the World Cinema Audience Award went to a film called Saving Grace. The Audience Award for Dramatic Feature went to a movie called Two Family House. Are you familiar with either of those, Jason?
Yeah, I am familiar with them. Two Family House, I think I have never seen, but I'm pretty sure was one of those kind of that might have been, was that Todd Field's first movie?
No, the director is Raymond De Filita, not someone I'm familiar with.
Okay, but I think it's another one of these kind of domestic dramas that, like You Can Count on Me, were popular at the time.
Yeah. So some other notable films at Sundance that year, Steve Buscemi's Animal Factory, Jamie Babbitt's But I'm a Cheerleader, Miguel Arteta's Chuck and Buck, the documentary The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Brad Anderson's Happy Accidents, Gina Prince Bythewood's Love and Basketball, The Virgin Suicides by Sofia Coppola, which we covered in our 1999 season, and Michael Winterbottom's Wonderland. So really, I think as we talked about in our episodes on those films, like this was a moment in that kind of Sundance indie cinema where like so many of those movies went on either themselves to get a lot of attention or those filmmakers went on to do a lot of mainstream work. Both American Psycho and Boiler Room that we did episodes on this season were also at Sundance.
Josh, you said Two Family House, right?
I did.
Yes, Two Family House. The dreamer finds that his wife and friends are binding him to his mediocre existence. Oh my.
Yeah, that happens. We're all in our bound to our mediocre existence.
You're binding me, Josh.
I'm sorry.
Existence. Yeah, Sundance. Lots of stuff going on there. Best Picture, Josh. We did Gladiator, and as of this recording, the teaser for Gladiator 2 just came out. What did you guys think of that?
I mean, it looked like a big old action movie. It'll probably be fine.
I don't understand the point, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't like need to be made, but if they're going to make it, it definitely looks fun. And I think it was smart to not just have like younger up and coming actors, but the fact that Denzel Washington has such a big role in it, I think is key.
Yeah.
Also nominated that year, Traffic, which I said would have been my pick, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which we covered, Josh. Aaron Brockovich, Steven Soderbergh going 2 for 2 in Best Picture noms that year. And Josh, your least favorite movie, Chocolat.
Which I still haven't actually seen, but I think is just sort of a lightweight compared to the others, it seems like. And Jason, related to Gladiator, you were going to check out, we just mentioned the trailer for the actual Gladiator 2, but the bizarre Nick Cave Gladiator 2 project you said you were going to look into.
Josh, I did my research on Gladiator 2. I have this book here, Underexposed, the 50 Greatest Movies Never Made by Joshua Hull. And it has these cool, like 2 or 3 pages of like, here's what led up to this. Here's what the movie would have looked like. And here's probably why it didn't happen. And they have all these poster designers doing kind of fake posters for what it would have been. So that's pretty cool. So basically what we learned in this is that Gladiator, big success. We knew that. And they were talking about different versions of Gladiator 2, but Russell Crowe just took it upon himself to go up to Nick Cave, who had just written The Proposition, the Australian Western, and was like, hey, man, why don't you write Gladiator 2? And Nick Cave's like, yeah, why don't I write Gladiator 2, right? So here's what happens. Maximus, I don't think he died, right? I think he's like...
No, doesn't he like go to hell?
Here's what it says. I'm just going to read it for you, okay? So the screenplay opens with Maximus walking up in the mud, his armor having ripped off his body by a couple of thieves. A figure appears and scares him off and reveals himself to be Mordecai, the keeper of peace. From here, Maximus finds himself at a temple where 7 dissolute old men sit around a makeshift table. So I don't think it has anything to do with hell, right? So anyway, Jupiter, who's one of these guys at the table, promises to reunite Maximus with his family if he tracks Hephaestus and kills him. So Maximus goes to do this, and he goes back to Rome, but he's alive. And now his son Marius is also alive and speaking the word of Jesus. Meanwhile, Lucius, who in the second one is now played by Paul Mescal, is the bad guy who's killing all the Christians all over. So Maximus has to fight Lucius, right? So good enough, whatever. But that's not how the story ends, right? After Maximus like destroys Lucius and all of his army, he gets like, I don't know if it's like a hard cut or whatever, but now we see him in the Middle East surrounded by another bunch of crusaders, and he has to fight there. Then he's in a bloody battlefield in the snow, and then he's in Vietnam. So it's like Maximus through the ages as this general warrior who has to fight everybody. And then it ends with Maximus in present day, and now he's the Secretary of Defense for America.
I mean, I think he is in maybe not hell, but you mentioned Jupiter is one of the gods, the Roman gods. So I think he is in the afterlife, and they're sending him to like be reincarnated.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, yeah. So I think that makes sense there, Josh.
I mean, as crazy as it is, it has a weird kind of Hollywood logic where you would think at the time, one of the studio executives' main notes would be, how can we bring back Russell Crowe, right? And that would have been a way to do it.
I would have watched that movie.
Yeah, no, I would have as well. And we could have done a whole episode about it.
No, we can't.
So, Dave, you picked American Psycho. What were some of your other thoughts on what you could have picked this season?
So I had to pick American Psycho. There's just no way we could do this season without it. But the other ones I was thinking about, so my number one runner-up was going to be Dude, Where's My Car? which is, who knows how that holds up. But I remember right when we were finalizing plans, Ashton Kutcher kind of got in some hot water, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to touch that. So my other runner-up was going to be Scary Movie, which I hope we get to talk about the Wayans brothers at some point because they are great. And I do think that's the last good spoof movie, honestly, the first Scary Movie. But a couple others, Me, Myself, and Irene, which I think is an underrated Jim Carrey movie, and Best in Show. We've already talked about Christopher Guest, but it's probably my favorite of his movies.
Yeah, I remember liking Dude, Where's My Car a lot. And I sometimes enjoy, we did an episode on Smiley Face that was my pick one time. I have a lot of fun with those dumb stoner comedies, but I'm with you. I feel like that probably does not hold up.
The last great spoof movie yet the year after Wet Hot American Summer came out, Dave.
Was it the year after? Okay, never mind. It's not the last great, but it's one of the last greats.
We had quite the dispute about our cult classic pick, as we talked about in that episode.
Josh, I'm going to interrupt you real fast because one of those cult classic suggestions was our animated pick, which we forgot to mention, Chicken Run.
Yeah, you're right. We added that category, and I just somehow breezed past it. So, I will say in that category, one other movie that I think we would have considered is The Emperor's New Groove, the Disney release that year. And I know my sister Brandy said she would never forgive us if we didn't cover it. So I guess we'll never be forgiven. But I love that movie. It is a Disney outlier. It's very Looney Tunes-ish. It's hilarious. But, we've covered a couple Disney animated movies in the past. And I think it was great to get to Aardman and talk about stop motion there. Which
I agree. And I love Brandy, so I don't want her to never forgive me. But if it means she's never forgiving you, that's just a sacrifice I'll have to make.
All right. So, that was also Chicken Run, a possibility for cult classic. We went with Boiler Room, which I maintain is not really a cult classic. Jason also suggested Remember the Titans, not a cult classic.
Too big of a film.
Pitch Black, which I'm not sure if that really qualifies either. James Toback's Black and White, and the Japanese film Battle Royale. So I don't know, maybe not the best year for cult classics that are actually cult classics.
I think Battle Royale would have been a good pick, and I know we have a lot of people who wanted us to cover that.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been good. And, as much as I disliked Boiler Room, I think we had a good discussion about it.
I think so. We really broke down all the ways that it didn't work. Hooray for us, Josh. Hey, Josh, Boiler Room, the ending didn't work for me, but Dave looked into the alternate ending. Tell us about that one, Dave.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked for you either. But basically, Harry packs up a gun and starts heading to the office. Seth makes his way out of the office much quicker than in the actual cut. And then they bump into each other in the parking lot. And Seth very nicely helps him pick up all his stuff, which includes the gun. He doesn't realize it's a gun. It's in a little black case. And he's just like, oh, thank you so much. And thank you. So they're like really nice to each other. And then Harry continues into the office. Seth continues to his car. And in voiceover, Seth is like, I wonder if Harry ever got his money back. I wouldn't even know him if I bumped into him.
So is it implying that Harry's going to then go in and kill everyone in that office?
I believe so. And that Seth just luckily got out. So
that is, certainly a much darker ending than what we ended up with.
I think that would have been a better ending, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't really like it,
I maybe too, because as we said in the episode, one of my issues with the film was that it sort of was too soft on these bros and, gives the redemption to the Seth character. And I guess he still gets away there, but that puts it closer to American Psycho, which I felt like was a better depiction of that toxic finance world. So it might have worked better for me too. Yeah.
Right on.
Josh, for audience choice, we went with movies about music, High Fidelity, a worthwhile winner that you were just dead wrong on, Josh. Almost Famous, Beloved, and Duets were the choices. Almost Famous, probably got to revisit that one, but we had so many other potential choices, Josh. 3-word teen movies, Down to You, Here on Earth, Whatever It Takes, Boys and Girls. Animated movies based on TV characters, an extremely goofy movie, Pokemon the Movie 2000, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, Rugrats in Paris. And then, Josh, lesser known films from big time directors. I think I picked about 20 of them.
Yeah, you just had a big ass list there. That would not have worked at all.
I know we couldn't have done it all, but The Beach, Danny Boyle, Supernova, Walter Hill, Play It to the Bone, Ron Shelton, Reindeer Games, John Frankenheimer. I could go on and on and on and on. Mission to Mars, Brian De Palma, 28 Days, Betty Thomas, Rules of Engagement, William Friedkin. I'm not done yet, Josh. Small Time Crooks, Woody Allen. Look at all these, Josh. What Lies Beneath, Robert Zemeckis, Space Cowboys, Clint Eastwood. There's just so many. State and Maine, David Mamet, Dr. T and the Women, Robert Altman. Josh, stop me at any point in time.
Yeah, you can say some of those are not really lesser known necessarily, but I mean, I think it goes to how much was going on this year in different areas of cinema and why it was a good choice from our buddy Dave there. So thank you, Dave.
Absolutely.
We had a lot of great suggestions also from listeners on social media. We asked you, what are some of your favorites from the year 2000? A lot of things that we mentioned before. Multiple people, starting with Betsy Gorham, brought up Bring It On and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And Christopher Nolan's Memento, which, maybe something that we're going to get to a little later. Lucas Egan suggested M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable, as well as The Perfect Storm. Damian Masterson offered up John Waters' film Cecil B. Demented. Jennifer Howell suggested Requiem for a Dream, the Darren Aronofsky film. Karen Carlson Snyder, Quills, which I think a couple people suggested. And she says Joaquin Phoenix should have been nominated for that instead of Gladiator. That is quite a statement to make. So have you seen that, Jason?
No, I know Jeffrey Rush, Kate Winslet. That's one worth watching.
I like that Marquis de Sade,
right?
Yeah.
You're a fan of that one, Dave?
Yeah, I haven't seen it since the theater, but I remember liking it a lot.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll have to check that out. I have not seen that. George Hannah Wilson had a big list. He also suggested Quills. He suggested Ginger Snaps, the teen werewolf movie that I do have kind of a soft spot for. Dave, he's another fan of Scary Movie. He mentioned the original Final Destination and The Cell, the Tarsum Singh film, which is that could have also maybe been a cult film. Actually, has a gorgeous visuals, if not a great plot.
Right. I think Final Destination would have been interesting because that, how many sequels did that spawn off? And it had all those like hot teen actors at the time that maybe we haven't heard from in years. That would have been an interesting one to look at.
Yeah, and some of those Final Destination sequels are fun, and just the formula that it established with that first movie. And I believe they're making another one right now, so it's an ongoing franchise.
So as you see, the Final Destination is not really a Final Destination.
No, they're never going to reach the final destination of those movies. Craig Cohen suggested Hollow Man, the Paul Verhoeven, Kevin Bacon movie. Shaft, the remake from that year with or remake / sequel, whatever it is, with Samuel L. Jackson
and Busta Rhymes.
Is Busta Rhymes in that?
Yeah.
I watched that again when the new remake, which was really bad, came out a few years ago, and it's all right actually. That one, just John Singleton directed it.
You know the thing about Shaft, Josh? It's his duty to please that booty.
It is, and I think Samuel L. Jackson says that in that
That's
movie.
why I said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
U571 also a suggestion, the submarine film, which I have not seen.
Good.
Ben Blyle suggested Guy Ritchie's Snatch, which I know you're a big fan of, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, this is that time period where you're really getting Guy Ritchie establishing himself with Snatch and Lock, Stock, and I mean, those would be the ones that I'd want to cover.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that. Also, those early Ritchie movies in quite a while. Tia Bean offered up Shadow of the Vampire, the Willem Dafoe movie about the fake story of the making of Nosferatu.
Do you remember when we saw that in the movie theater, Josh? We saw it.
I do. Yeah.
Do you remember what happened?
There was some weird disruption, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a crying baby. Who the fuck brings their baby to Shadow of the Vampire? And then the guy yelled at us because we were like, dude, come on. He's like, oh, I'm a parent. It's hard. And I'm like, yeah, dude, don't bring your baby to the movie, you idiot. So,
wow. Yeah, you have a very vivid memory. I just remembered like there was something that happened, but you really, that made an impression on you.
I do want to rewatch that along with the original Nosferatu and the Herzog Nosferatu, since we have Robert Eggers' Nosferatu coming out soon.
Yeah, and Willem Dafoe is in that Robert Eggers film, so I feel like this is going to get, maybe some renewed attention for Shadow.
Don't bring your baby to that movie.
No,
agreed.
Please don't. Our good friend Victoria Ribeiro mentioned Croupier, the film with Croupier. I think I don't know if how it's pronounced. Yeah, with with Clive Owen, as well as the remake of Bedazzled with Brendan Fraser and Jennifer Love Hewitt, I think maybe.
No,
No,
wasn't it Elizabeth Hurley?
Elizabeth Hurley. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that, but either way.
Croupier is a cool little Clive Owen pick. I like that movie.
Yeah, no, I do too. Is it Mike Hodges, I think, is the director of that one? D.W. Lundberg had a huge list of suggestions. Some we haven't mentioned. 13 Days, which I think is pretty good.
I like that one.
Frequency with Dennis Quaid.
Is that where he's trying to communicate with like his dead mom or something?
Yeah, I think it's so. Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel maybe, and Dennis Quaid is the dead father, and they have the radio conversation over like time travel
that could
or whatever.
Be interesting. I've never seen that.
I think I've seen it. I don't remember much about it. Return to Me, the heart transplant romantic comedy, which I think you and I watched together.
Bonnie Hunt and David Duchovny. Bonnie Hunt, an interesting character, and she directed that one, I think.
Yeah, and Minnie Driver, I think, is the love interest there. That was also a suggestion from Penny Holiday. Mentioned a bunch of movies I'm not familiar: 100 Girls, Dinner Rush, Green Fingers, and Faust. So. Thank you for that. I should have looked up
100 Girls, I think, was Jonathan Tucker in college dating like 100 girls or something like that. So
sure. Carlo from the Movie Loop podcast suggested Spike Lee's Bamboozled, which I have not seen, but also seems to have gotten kind of a reassessment at this time.
That movie is hilarious. And I think that shows kind of the genius. The same way that Scorsese's King of Comedy was like ahead of its time, I kind of feel like Bamboozled was.
I should check that out then, maybe. Another loyal listener we appreciate, Ryan Olbrich, really took us apart. Ryan, I hope you enjoyed this season, because at the beginning he said, as a whole, 2000 equals poop emoji. And then he suggested, ironically, I'm sure, Big Wind on Campus, aka Fart the Movie, Nut Bag, and The Magic Pudding, which I think are all just ridiculous, awful things that we would not actually want to watch.
That would have been great. I would have done any one of those. That could have been our audience choice for Ryan Ulbrich's ridiculous picks from 2000. That would have been great.
I'm not familiar with any of those. I do love that this movie, Big Wind on Campus, is also known as Fart the Movie, because there is in fact another movie known as Fart the Movie. So we got to differentiate.
We got to know. Yeah.
My sister, Brandy Bell, as I said, would not forgive us without covering The Emperor's New Groove. She also mentioned Charlie's Angels, which I enjoy quite a bit, and Miss Congeniality. Jonathan Clark, our old high school buddy, suggested Meet the Parents and Shanghai Noon for awesome Owen Wilson year.
Hey, yeah, why not? There's
a lot of good movies.
Yeah, it was quite a lot. I mean, and that's not even everything there. I was kind of paring it down there. We appreciate all those suggestions. Thank you to everyone. Hopefully, people enjoyed hearing about the movies that we did talk about that they suggested, and we'll get to Fart the Movie maybe eventually.
It's gotta happen.
So, Jason, do you want to let people know what's, well, first of all, two things. We've got, as we said, multiple people asking for this film. We've got a bonus episode coming up on the Patreon. What's that going to be?
You tell me, Josh.
It's Christopher Nolan's Memento.
Jason used to write it on his chest or something.
Which I watched yesterday.
Yeah, I was like, we're literally recording this very soon. Jason is like the character in Memento.
That's what Dave was saying.
Unable to retain information. So, so if you're a member of our Patreon, the By David Rosen Patreon, between us and Dave's Piecing It Together podcast, Dave's music, lots of cool stuff there, including our bonus episodes. We will have a bonus on Memento, which numerous people asked about. And that should be fun. And then, Jason, search deep in your thoughts and see if you can recall what's coming up in our new season.
Josh, you picked the year. It's 1969. Why did you pick it, Josh?
I think, we did 1967. And I think this is similarly that transitional period. It's just fairly soon after the end of the production code. We're moving into the new Hollywood era. We've got the whole counterculture movement going on in larger society. So I think it's a good mix of studio stuff and independent voices, and hopefully that's how it'll turn out. So what are we going to begin with?
Josh, I agree with you real fast. I do want to say I think this is the year that kind of like was the last step to getting to New Hollywood. So we are there, Josh. And we're going to start with the box office champ. Raindrops will be falling on our head because we're doing Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
So check out that in our next episode, and follow us online and on social media where you can make all those great suggestions that we took.
And we appreciate them. And they were great. Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. Awesome Movie Pod on X, the great platform X. That's where they're there on that one. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy, and all the things. Look out for Eat This Comedy. We are doing more shows around Las Vegas.
You can find some old stuff from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on X Twitter, and on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. And as we said, like You're a Blur, if you watch any of the movies that we talk about and you review it on Letterboxd, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We'd love to know what you think, and share your thoughts on our next epilogue.
Yeah, Dave, you should give You're a Blur a free membership to your Patreon.
If I could figure out how to do that, what button to push, I would do it.
And Dave, we should mention, of course, Dave's great podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at Piecing Pod, and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces.
Lots of suggestions came from that group as well, so thank you to all the members of that. Tune in next time for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.